Assalamu alaikum to everyone who listening and watching us today. We are here with a new İLEM Istanbul Talks today. As usually, let me introduce myself firstly. I am Ahmet Köroğlu. I am assistant professor at Istanbul University at Political Science Department, and I am board member of İLEM, Scientific Studies Association, and coordinator of these talks, İLEM Istanbul Talks. As to mention briefly about these talks, for a while we have been aware of the importance of sharing our scientific and cultural accumulation and experiences with the international community, which academics, researchers, young scholars, and others from different geographies, and to benefit from their intellectual experiences as well. To this, we started new talk series with the name of İLEM Istanbul Talks. And we believe that the İLEM Istanbul Talks will help us to achieve this aim and make it easy to communicate and cooperate better with international academicians and academic institutions. And today we are doing the fourth İLEM Istanbul Talks with well-known names, Professor Sari Hanafi and Professor Tahir El-Mesawi. And also we have an important title topic as well today, Sharia and Social Science, a new approach of knowledge. Professor Hanafi has an interesting and important and also sizable, around 800 pages book addressing and discussing these issues. The Arabic title is علوم الشرع والعلوم الاجتماعية نحو تجاوز القطيعة أليس الصبح بقريب. And today this book will be one of our main focus in today's talk, inshallah. Now, I would like to briefly introduce the speaker and the moderator just before start the talk. Firstly, our moderator, Professor Mohamed El-Tahir El-Mesawi, is a Tunisian intellectual who gained his doctorate on Islamic revealed knowledge and heritage from the International Islamic University, Malaysia, in 2003, and is currently a lecturer at the Department of Fiqh and Usul al-Fiqh, International Islamic University of Malaysia. Professor Mesawi is editor of At-Tajdeed and managing editor of Islamiyat al-Marifa, both refer to scholarly Arabic journals, and he has published numerous scholarly papers on Islamic studies and philosophy, and has won awards for translation and academic excellence. He is editor of forthcoming book, The Question of Minorities in Islam, Theoretical Perspective and Case Studies. And our speaker, Professor Sari Hanafi, is currently a professor of sociology at the American University of Beirut and the chair of the Islamic Studies program. He is the president of the International Sociological Association, and recently he created the portal for social impact of scientific research on the Arab world, Athar. He was the vice president of the board of the Arab Council of Social Science, and he is author of numerous journals, articles, and book chapters on the sociology of religion, sociology of migration, politics of scientific research, civil society, elite formation, and transitional justice. He is the winner of 2014 Abdulhamid Shoman Award and 2015 Kuwait Award for Social Science. And in addition to these, in 2019, he has awarded an honorary doctorate of the National University of San Marcos which the first and the leading university in Lima, Peru, established in 1551. Again, welcome Professor Mesawi and Professor Hanafi for accepting our invitation for the ILEM Istanbul Talks, and thank you to participate and to listen today talks who follow us on their sequence. Yes, Professor Mesawi, please welcome. You can start the talk, inshallah.
And prominent scholar whom I have known personally and followed his works. Just a slight update or correction, because Dr. Ahmed seems to have taken my information from the net, which is a little bit old. So actually the book he mentioned was already published long time ago, about 2015. So it means, unfortunately, I did not, maybe it was my mistake, I did not provide him with most update information. Anyway, that's not very important. It can happen on many occasions. Now we have our guest, our main speaker. I will be his interlocutor, trying to give input to the discussion in terms of raising certain important questions. But it would be, of course, wise first to have Professor Hanafi give us a brief presentation, an overview of the project he has been working on, especially on the central thesis that he has been developing in his work, which has taken shape in his last book just mentioned by Dr. Ahmed, علوم الشرع والعلوم الاجتماعية نحو تجاوز القطيعة. So I would first invite Professor Hanafi to just give us 15 minutes, perhaps will be sufficient, a condensed presentation or overview of the central thesis of his book. Please, Prof. Hanafi.
Thank you, Professor Mesawi. Again, thank you for the invitation for ILEM. I would like briefly present my book, Addressing the Rupture Between the Religious and Social Sciences. Is the morning coming soon? So it is 800 page, targeting not only specialists in Islamic studies, but also in social science, providing methodological and epistemological grounds for a future interdisciplinary dialogue. It starts from the premise that religion cannot be reduced to jurisprudence, that jurisprudence requires an understanding of ethics, that and therefore bringing jurisprudence to reality require scientific tools that have developed in the circle of humanities in general and in the social science in particular. This book contains the summary of 5 years of fieldwork in which the Faculty of Sharia and or Islamic Studies in some Arabic countries in the East, Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, Kuwait, and Qatar, and North Africa, Morocco and Algeria, and Malaysia, all these fieldwork were examined. Specifically, universities in these localities were studies in terms of their curricula, knowledge production, method of teaching religious sciences, and in terms of relationship these sciences have to other scientific fields. So this book concludes by highlighting major challenges that these faculties are facing in terms of how they choose to orchestrate their teachings. Notably among them is a quasi-absence of social science courses in these faculties, the marginalization of maqasid al-sharia for ijtihad, and the rarity of teaching a course and applied ethics. So this is really my main findings. In addition, I argue that the boundaries between Islamic studies and Sharia studies should be blurred, as their differences are not in the methodology, but in their particular focuses. This book then proposes 3 alternative models in the Islamic world that can help the faculty of Sharia to overcome their challenges. I am thinking about the Dar al-Hadith al-Hassaniya Institute for Higher Islamic Studies in Morocco, the College of Islamic Studies of Hamad bin Khalifa University in Qatar, and the International Islamic University of Malaysia. And I'm glad that Professor Mesawi is one of the prominent faculty of this of IOM. Finally, the way out of the tough antagonistic dichotomies between the Sharia and social science can only be achieved if they are combined through a double educational approach. Even if this is only done on the minimum format, for instance, adding to faculties of Sharia introductory courses in different social sciences disciplines, and adding to other faculties and departments courses in religion as university requirement that can be some elective under rubric of cultural, civilizational, or ethics studies. This is an approach necessary in order to build practical reasonings that are able to effectively integrate the pluralistic views that stem from religion, local culture, and the social sciences and the humanities. Without this, this is no way to successfully simultaneously working with liberal arts education and religious and cultural ideals, which need to include fostering the ability to work out tensions between them. If not, the Islamic world will continue to have conflicting elite formations in which religious scholars are insensitive about the mutation of their local context, or social science scholars don't sufficiently account for norms and values from the performative perspective of social actors. This is not because religion can take the form of illiberal doctrine, but also those who are anti-clericalists become illiberal and even exclusionary and inegalitarian as well. By providing a critical assessment to the Islamization of knowledge paradigm, this book argues that any epistemological reasoning requires being furnished with reality check exercises, locally and globally. The process of knowledge integration and the ecological approach of knowledge seeks to take advantage of both universals and local specificities, a sort of cross-fertilization of social science disciplines and area studies. In that case, I mean Islamic studies, rather than adopting a position that pits local theoretical context against Western materialistic theories. Western theoretical frameworks cannot be reduced to being materialistic, purely empirical, and or individualistic. Similarly, Islamic frameworks don't essentially entail idealism, spirituality, and community. The issue at stake is not simply praising the importance of community over the individual, but rather to allow for the ability to conduct analysis that focuses on certain social classes or social groups like the underprivileged. So the book is really around these parameters, and I hope with the discussion will some issues will be clarified.
Okay, so in light of what you have been presenting now, it comes to my mind a very important question. And let me just introduce that question with some historical remarks. As you well know, and many of our followers on YouTube know, this dialogue or discourse on the bridging the gap between the so-called traditional disciplines or the Islamic studies with their different areas of specialization, and the modern or contemporary social sciences and the humanities has been going for decades now. And if I just mention the famous first international conference on Islamic education held in Mecca in 1977 for almost 12 days or 10 days at least, and came with a number of recommendations on the different aspects of how to integrate the procedure, etc. And some of the scholars who have been involved in this dialogue wrote books, and conferences have been going on, etc., etc. Within this broad dialogue and discourse that has been going on, of course, it have taken different names. Some people will call تأصيل العلوم الاجتماعية, others will call integration of knowledge, revelation-based knowledge, social science knowledge. People call Islamization, whatever the terms that are being used. The essence of the discourse is how to go beyond the gap, how to go for this kind of cross-fertilization or hybridization. Some people may call this interdisciplinarity between the different disciplines. Where can you place exactly your project, the book you have been working on, the research you have been doing for the last 5 to 6 years? Can you situate your project in this broad discussion?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mohamed El-Tahir. In fact, as a sociologist, I did discourse analysis. So I took all almost 120 products, whether book or articles, who claim from Islamization of knowledge or interchangeably all the vocabulary you brought. I mean, التأصيل, grounding, all this. And I noticed that, in fact, this philosophically is very interesting knowledge production. But when it comes to what is the implication and understand our problems of today, they are really reluctant to provide empirical evidence of what would be a way of understanding our problems or providing solution to them. So if you like, basically, I don't have any problem with any vocabulary. The problem is that whether they will produce a sound scientific outcome, or they will dwell into what I called identity politics production. What the meaning? Let me give example. When you say when you dwell on saying we are different and we will use an Islamic social theory and Islamic theory from Ibn Khaldun and from our vernacular scholar, and you neglect the other production because it's materialistic, Western, etc. Here, really, you impoverish your work theoretically, and often it was. I noticed this. However, I see how intelligently people bring Islamic perspective to the social science production, especially in a new generation in IOM, in your university, for instance, how they become less identity politics. They exercise less identity politics and provide real scientific evidence of what is going on. I will give example. One of your PhD students, Mohamed El-Tahir, who become now faculty, she did her PhD on the breast cancer and sick woman in a village in Malaysia. What is very interesting that in this thesis, she mentioned how reciting Quran was bringing spirituality and really alleviate suffering of this woman who have affected by this cancer. I read a few months before going to Malaysia and discovered this, another thesis done in Tunisian village, your own country, and exactly the same topic, and the woman didn't talk anything about spirituality of the woman. They didn't talk about reciting Quran, whether alleviate or not alleviate. And both theses done in anthropological approach. So how come the student of IOM have lens to see the importance of spirituality, and the anthropologists, Tunisian anthropologists, doing a work for France, for one of the French university, didn't have that. So here where I see the Islamic perspective has meaning, but not as identity politics. And I propose alternatively a methodology called الفصل والوصل والفعل التعددي. This connection and pluralistic action. In nutshell, we need to respect methodology and epistemology of each disciplines. It means that you do sociology, you do it properly. You do علم الحديث, you do properly. You do Quranic studies, you do properly with the exegesis methods and and then we need to connect these together to be consistent with our worldview. Worldview can be labeled as Islamic worldview, but not necessarily. It means that I may have a Palestinian worldview and Muslim worldview and Arab worldview. So it's not only thinking only about religion as a culture. So consistent with the worldview, and then we need to go when you converge the outcome of studying in a problem that need Sharia understanding and sociological or medical or anthropological understanding, and you converge them at certain point, you, in that case, you can address what next in a pluralistic way. Why I said pluralistic way? Because there is always two messages. One for the believers, so you will use, for instance, the Quran, you will use to convince people what is ethically sound, and you need a message for the citizens that can be Muslims, can be Hindu, can be anything. So a message for humanity that not necessarily labeled in packaged in a religious language. So this is, if you like, I'm trying I don't like this idea that tawhidic epistemology in a macro level will resolve everything. No, I said it doesn't resolve everything. You need to work in a micro epistemological foundations where you work in a parallel way, two disciplines to think about a problem and converge them and come with different solutions.
Don't you think, Prof. Hanafi, that when we are talking about some people, they call them two separate words or two different words, while actually, as far as I can understand, whether you are talking about sociology or anthropology or psychology or whatever, whether in Islam you are talking about starting from the Quran itself and the different disciplines that have developed, all actually they converge on one essential thing, which is the human reality, human socio-historical reality. Of course, some have the dimension of the hereafter or of the metaphysical, others may not have that dimension. So the issue is that we have two perspectives or maybe two broad paradigms, and sometimes each of the people belonging to these two paradigms actually they think they are talking about different matters, different subjects, while the thing that they are all concerned about is how to shape human reality, how to understand it, how to develop it or reshape it one way or another. What do you think about this proposition? That people are some way or another locked into their own paradigms, and this at the expense of the reality which all of them address in different perspectives, from different perspectives, or using this dealing with it with different tools. Can we make this one of the problems, the main causes that widens this gap?
Yeah, actually, reality. Always, when we talk about reality, there is ethical dimension. It means when we talk about poverty, what is the threshold where a poverty is accepted? Some hermit in the mountain, they accept that they have nothing except what some food in the evening to eat. Living in a city, you have more claim. So reality has a different dimensions, and to depict this, to moralize this, to understand a problem, a social problem, you need tools. These tools, some of it you have it in the tradition, and the Quran and the Hadith, is part of it. It means that what you consider it as acceptable for a form of sexuality, form of a dress. But in the same time, you need to acknowledge that society change, and with the changing perception of things, it change. People change their perception. What is a good life in Aristotelian meaning? What is a good income? What is a good sexuality? What is this is to understand this, you need sociological tools. Taking the sociological tools here will become extremely important. That the religious scholar to understand it, this in order to go and to moralize this or providing solution to this social problem. So what I'm trying to say, yes, there is ontological level. I agree with you. If I come as a sociologist and I define happiness in terms of materiality, and you Professor Mosawi, come and you say no, happiness, there is a spiritual dimension, and if I do my survey and I didn't take into account the spirituality, you are right in that. But it's often not the case. The often is really we need to the input of this science and the input of religious science and cooperate between them to reach an issue. Let me give an example really to clarify, and a very sensitive example. Take the homosexuality, for instance. Homosexuality, you have a whole jurisprudence and moral thought of Islam on homosexuality. But now, if a faqih today will reason about homosexuality, whether this faqih is in Malaysia, in Lebanon, or in France, etc., this faqih need the input of social scientists to say whether homosexuality is a cultural fashion come with the globalization, or this a biological need for a certain a percentage of population. This is a very important, because if it is a fashion, this can be resolved in a certain way. And if it is biological need, this need to be addressed differently. So this kind of things. So the cooperation now, if you are in Malaysia and you have this kind of problem raised about homosexuality, you need to bring both knowledge, and then I think you need to think what next in terms of advocacy plan, in terms of a legal plan, legal for citizens, in terms of da'wah for believer. You may say, for believer, I will ask them to abstain if they have biologically need. While I don't know, there is a parliament, there is a democratic tools that you will think how you will bring a message to a pluralistic society where you don't have only Muslim, but also other religious group, other ethnic group. This is what I'm trying to say, that really it's not important to say that if you like, biology or sociology will not go into ontological level and resonate about homosexuality. Sociology or biology will simply provide sufficient information how society today perceive this phenomenon, and how yeah. So this is what I'm trying to say.
If I just start from the example you have provided, and the issue of perception and changing perceptions among humans of themselves and of whatever around them in the world. It seems there is at the bottom of your submission something pertaining to human nature, perhaps adopting the idea that there is no universal human nature, there is no essence of a human nature, so everything keeps it changing. And of course it can be justified by different types of explanations, whether biological, sociological, anthropological, cultural, etc. Does this issue or objection make sense to you, and does it have an answer in the paradigm you are trying to build, or the project you are trying to develop?
Yeah, actually, the human nature and the fitra, it's a moral issue. Is a moral, is very related to your ontology. So I don't mind that you believe that, for instance, the straight way of sexuality is a human nature, and you can keep thinking like this. So it's a not this kind of a question. It's not scientific question. This is that side is related to our normativity as a Muslim, as a human rights activist, as Arab, as etc. So I don't see, if you like, how collaboration between biology, sociology, and religious study in this material can undermine, if you like, the notion of what is a human nature.
Because actually this is it comes not just from say Islamic religious background, but I can provide a number of people from the social sciences, from politics, from whatever, people who have argued that. I can just here cite Fukuyama, Francis, in his book about our post-human future, when he, from the very beginning of his book and throughout, said that, and of course, someone even before him, the Massachusetts professor of psychology, Stephen Panker, they have been saying that over the last years, Panker actually, Panker says that over the last 4 to 5 centuries, there has been a consistent denial of something called the human nature, in order to just leave the individual and the humankind as a floating being shaped time and again by the circumstances, by the manipulations which Fukuyama meant, and based on that, they say the consequence is going to that we are actually undermining all basis of values and the human society.
Yeah.
So because if what you have been saying is that a kind of agnostic position towards the existence of such a common, because once you say there is no human nature, or it is something that is in keep changing every day, you are actually undermining the basis for values. You cannot talk about universal values that are suitable to all mankind.
Absolutely, I fully agree with you, and I think Mohamed Tahir, you put your point to yes. In social science, you have pathologies, and in religious science, you have pathologies. I mean, some a conservative Wahhabi Salafi way of understanding nature, human nature, which can bring anything as a human nature, tell you that putting Galabiya is a human nature, and not the pants, for instance. So you have a pathology, and I think Fukuyama, in a way of seeing the agency is unleashed, no limits, etc., is a very problematic. And I fully agree with you. In my sociology, for instance, believe me, I behave like any Friday sermon preachers. I remind people of the anthropological foundation of a human being as a giver. I am sure, Professor Moussawi, you read Marcel Mauss and his fantastic work on the gift, and how a gift is how we understand human relationships. So it's not, if you like, in my sociology, I see in everyday life how much people can be homo economicus, looking only for interest. But I keep remind them that what you call universal value of a human being, of a humanities, that is really is paradigmatically is the mother with her relationship to her kids. I mean, how she give without it's what we call agape love, without a counterpart, without expecting that a return of her gift. So yes, I think the tension you mentioned is a real one. And when I see that social science with its plurality will collaborate with علوم الشرع, Sharia science in its plurality, there is some format of both that can collaborate, and other format cannot be collaborate. If you deny completely that there is something in our heritage that shaped me now, the way I talk, the way my ontology, you don't understand me at all. So you need to account for that, and the same thing I would say for the humanity, and yeah. So I agree with you on this, that this is this kind of pathology from social science doesn't help at all to connect with religious science.
With that, I see the time is actually approaching the end, but there is an important question, because this is an important issue in your book, which you have suggested as a way out of the present dichotomic situation between the two types of knowledge. And I wish you will answer it briefly, so we can see the questions from the audience. The issue you in the last chapter of your book about the way ahead, you suggested what you call the maqasidic approach, or a maqasid-based approach, and in which, of course, maqasid has its framework, has its postulates. So can you elaborate a little more on this for the audience, because the book is in Arabic, and I don't think people have already been able to. So just a few minutes.
In a nutshell, I see in the faculty of Sharia, specifically in the Arab world, the domination of fiqh, the jurisprudence. It's you have so much courses on fiqh, and often you don't have one course in ethics or on morality. So I want to put things upside down, to say you need to start from morality, and morality is very important to reason, to have a practical, to have a reasoning about ethical dilemmas. So morality has two sources: the religion and moral philosophy. Both, they will help us to formulate today any moral dilemma we live in, and then from that we will produce situated fiqh. So this is a schema. If you will do this schema, you need to adopt maqasid al-Sharia approach. Maqasid al-Sharia approach, it means that we keep an eye to what is fundamental for human ethics. And actually, it's not for Muslim, for the humanity. And you know very well, Shatibi, the five necessities, he said this is for humanity and not only for Muslim. So this is, you keep an eye on them. You understand why a verse or a hadith came to us, the context of a text, and then now you need social science as a tools in order to see how you apply a text taking into account maqasid al-sharia, the high objectives of Islam. So this is the schema I see it. So this is why you cannot do this without methodology of social science. You cannot do this without the input of social science on that.
Okay, so let us go to our dear listeners and followers of this program. And I see a few questions that need to be taken care of. A question coming from Elisa Koitak. And I think the first, perhaps, let us first go to the first question and see whether we can entertain the second one. He said that, and this is important for your project, do you or does Mr. Hanafi's argument locate the social sciences as instruments or sources of information in the hands of theologians, or vice versa, or is it rather a cooperation between faculties? And here, before that, because he refers to the to Kantian categories of the different faculties. So, is it really someone who is providing the tools, providing the information, and just the other justifying or whatever? So, can you address this question, because it is very important? And the other issue, which actually has been implied in our previous discussion, is the problem only with the ulum al-sharia or the religious disciplines, or and so it has to suit itself. So this revelation-based or heritage-based knowledge has to suit itself to the existing and predominant paradigm of the social sciences, or do the social sciences also need to review themselves, reconsider some of their postulates, some of their fundamental propositions about humanity, about society, about human nature? So is it one way go, or it's a reciprocal business?
Yeah, no, it is reciprocal business, because I argue also that social scientists should develop their communicational skills, and to talk with the language of people. They should have a minimum knowledge of the culture of people, and part of the culture is the religion. So it's two ways. But let me say that social science is instrumental not only for theologian, but for a human rights activist, for lawmaker, for politicians. So the basic work of human of social science is to produce knowledge about the reality. This knowledge later on will be developed normatively by a theologian, by lawmaker, by policymaker. However, my sociology is a little bit different. I said, me also, I should have a normative stand. A normative stand is, I cannot afford not to defend human rights, the human rights, the humanity, the refugee rights, the underprivileged people. So one of the vocation of my discipline, social science, is also to defend this, and often I cannot do it alone. I need the help of theologian. I need the help of human rights activists and so on. Remember, the Islamic Republic of Iran only in 1979, after the arrival of Khomeini and the revolution, they curtailed the fertility rate by using the mosque as a way of propagating the message of family planning. So you have social science input that we cannot do development unless we reduce the fertility rate, and then they use different outlet for that. So I see more collaboration, but the collaboration you need analytically to see how what I call separation done in the beginning. That for instance, I am not somebody who like some manuscript send it to me as an editor of Arab Journal of Sociology, that you see citing Quran, Hadith. You don't understand where is in the beginning. I do understand it in the end. In the beginning, you don't understand whether he is looking to reality or he is so influenced by normative stands from the very beginning. And here problematic. This is why I call for separation. You do sociology, you did it properly. You do ilm al-hadith, you do properly this, and then here like collaboration, if you like.
Yeah, because you mentioned the normative and say the practical or the pragmatic or the whatever you may call it. This normativity, what sources can guarantee us such a normativity or norms that will be accepted by all, or at least some core will be shared by all, whether they are in the disciplines of Islamic heritage and knowledge or in the discipline of social sciences, because since social sciences is essentially focused on the concrete reality of society in its different dimensions. And of course, the Sharia or the Ulum Sharia is also one way or another concerned about these dimensions. So where can we have a kind of binding normativity, if I may use that term, that can help these people to be more consonant or at least be more sensitive to what each one of them is saying?
Yeah. So in macro level, yes, there is a binding normativity. I mean, what in Islamic thought called al-adl, al-ihsan, al-rahma, the importance of all this notion and the different virtue and value. I think it's there is absolutely a convergence between most of religions with then what is the development of a human normativity today. I mean, what is a humanity? The problem is when you go from macro to lower.
Micro.
Here, where Max Weber talk about how to combine ethics of conviction with ethics of responsibility. It means that you will think about responsibility. So I think yes, there is a binding normativity, but this is not sufficient, because once you and me we think in terms of ethics of responsibility, here we will diverge, whether you are theologists or you are social scientists. Take a case, take the issue, and any issue you like in Malaysia. I mean, how you manage today the ethnic conflict. They reach social scientists and theologists in Malaysia the notion of muhibba, which is in Arabic mahabba. Okay, they forged this. It's the equivalent of multiculturalism in Canada, if you like, and in Australia. But I mean, it's more grounded in the Turath and etc. So, but then this is the equivalent in Muhibba with the ethics of conviction. Now, how you projected today in relationship between Mali, Malaysian and Indian and Chinese. Here where we will converge, and here we will admit that this is need sophistication in finding solution to the tension, ethnic tension in country like Malaysia. So you see, I'm not worried about binding normativity in a macro level, but the more you go down, the more we will find tension, and we need to admit specifically with the notion of plurality. It means, and this is very important. I am not, for instance, I am a scholar of sociology, and I do accept who believe on citizenship, because we live in a nation state. But in the same time, I acknowledge that there is a different need to sacralize our marriage, that religious court is important as much as the civil court. So as a sociologist, simply I will say, let's go pluralistic. It means that those who wanted to get married in religious courts, let's do it. Those who don't want, go to civil. If you like, the theologian in Lebanon, they said, no. You was born Sunni, you go ipso facto to a Sunni court. You was born Maronite, you go to Maronite court. And this is, I think, here where we clash, here where you have a tension.
Okay. Now there is a question from the audience. I think it's an important one, referring to your statement that the teaching of fiqh or jurisprudence is in need of morality or ethics or some kind of that sort. So the issue is what he says, because in his understanding or her understanding, I think his understanding, Mr. Talha, in the Islamic tradition, fiqh is embedded in ethical norms, in morality. It's not segregated from morality. And what he is leveling against you is actually a kind of positivistic stand. So your approach to morality, ethics, and its relationship with jurisprudence is positive. Why? Because for a long time in the West, starting with the very famous positions of the positivistic school, Ayer and others, when they say whatever is not tangible, whatever is not measurable, whatever is actually nonsense, whether you are talking about metaphysics or ethics, and therefore all these were banned out from science, from the concept of science. Now, after so many crises happened in economics, in different arenas of life, ethics has come back, and there is a boom about ethics of everything, medical ethics, bioethics, engineering, all these kinds of things. So he is saying that your position seems to be more entangled in the positivistic view of morality and whatever. So how would you respond to this?
No, I first of all, I think our ancestor fuqaha, faqih, were really studying a social problem as a moral dilemma before bringing a jurisprudence, a certain jurisprudence. Today we have a different survey done where you have in Morocco, for instance, you have 65 or almost the 2/3 of a young Moroccan. If they want anything on religion, they go and Google it. They go to not necessarily Google, but they go to online fatwas, if you like. So the very idea is fatwas become timeless, not binding to a context recipe or a solution. And here where I am protesting, if you like, so, as simple as that. And I have sufficiently religious education in my child, since my child, I would say, that I know most of the contemporary fuqaha, they think today, unfortunately, like this. So not in Morocco, for instance. I appreciate so much somebody like Ahmed Raisuni, Sheikh Ahmed Raisuni, who really apply the maqasid al-Sharia. So I, if you like, my message maybe to go to the old sources and to see how they make al-fiqh. This is so important. This is my first point. The second point, that in fact, the whole my invitation, my call for if you like, an ethical turn of social science is really against the positivistic approach of social science. The contrary, I want to empower the social science with some ethical thought, and this ethical thought can have again two sources, can be from religion or from moral philosophy. So there is a loop, if you like. Social science is very well informed by ethics, and ethics will of social science will collaborate with ethics, religion as a source, and moral philosophy as a source, and all these will work together in order to reach situated fiqh that fiqh al-waqi', as Yusuf Qardawi wanted to say, or used to say. So I think yeah. So I don't know how much I'm clear, but
I think it should be clear. Let us just perhaps end with a question. You may answer it or not, depending on the time given to us. I would argue that just as the different Islamic disciplines are in need of questioning themselves on many aspects, methodological in terms of the approach to their own sources, scriptural sources, and this have been going on. How to understand the Quran, what kind of approach to the Sunnah, how to contextualize fiqh, etc., and how to develop our theological approach, not just talking, reproducing the old themes as they are, because the human problems in terms of belief have different dimensions. There are new causes for atheism, for example, for agnosticism, whatever. Don't you think that parallel to this, the social sciences are also in need of questioning themselves on many accounts, not only on what you mentioned, that in terms of communication, but in terms of some of their basic postulates about religion, about reality itself. So it's not one, because you talked about reciprocality, and I would like to see that this is not just limited to the surface, but goes to the profound, because sometimes the problem is not on the surface only, it is on the depth of the things. What would you
I agree with you. I think the issue is often that when you discuss with social scientists, they say, look, is inherent part of our methodology is a critical thinking, and we keep questioning our premises, our epistemology, our methodology, how to see the reality. So there is a dear need, and just to support what you said, for instance, social science was so influenced by secularization paradigms, and how secularization understood like a demise of the religion, or prohibition of the religion to be in the public sphere. And this was a very important bias. But now, for instance, social science more and more very critical of secularization paradigm. So I fully agree with you. We need to be very reflexive, and in a very deep way, the way we look the reality, and not to be ideological about something that a sister of social scientists said, whether Durkheim or Adam Smith or Karl Marx, etc., etc. So here the issue, if you like. By the way, my next book will be about social scientists, how social scientists incorporate and take into account religion. So this book, the 800 pages, is to say how Sharia faculty will incorporate social science. So it will be exactly the same work, etc. But just to tell you that I fully comfortable with your arguing with you, Professor Mesawi, and I see how you care about both sides, and how you see that they can collaborate. The problem often from theologists that they come and they said has an image of jurisprudence as 90% fixed, and then really become like you need to come, social scientists, you handle 20% of them, with while in fact many theologians say what is a thawabit in Islam is a few things, what mentioned in the Quran, where so it's 5%, it's not 80%. So you see here where social scientists trained to accept the criticism and to change, and theologies which think that jurisprudence is done with the four school of thought, and you have a peanuts just to change. Here where is the problem, and here where I have a critical, and here where I said let's go to Maqasid Sharia. This can help you from your own tradition, how to liberate your jurisprudence from this fixity.
Okay. With that, I just would throw something, but it's not necessarily to be answered now. It relates to your future work, your next book, because I concur with you that in the West, in the different disciplines, I have because I started actually studying sociology some time back, studied economics, whatever. So, and I never stopped following whether in sociology, in economics, and I am aware of the much self-criticism, the revisions, sometimes, and that's why you have cross and disciplinary approaches in order to make up for whatever gaps we have in our own discipline. This has been happening in the West. Now are working within an Arab Islamic framework, and your future work is on the other side of the bridge, because now you have talking about the Islamic side of the bridge. Now we are going to talk about the future. So do our fellow social scientists in Arab universities, in Muslim universities, because there is a difference, who have been doing social science for the last 50 years or 60 years at least, do they really question themselves about their own disciplines, their limits, and how to go beyond in order to cross-fertilize with others? Because there is a kind of perhaps parroting, or some of them they are back way, they are following the criticisms that have been going on in America, in UK, in Germany, and whatever. So I think this is a challenge because if our people take whatever social science theories produced by Western scholars whom we respect, are not able to rethink about that in the context, because we have a different socio-historical context with its peculiarities and particularities. So perhaps this will be one of the central issues that you may need to raise with your fellow social scientists.
Yes, just in two words, I would say social scientist community is a really pluralistic. You have those who are reflexive, and you have those who are not. And I think there is a struggle, there is a tension, and there is a lot of things to be done. In your own country, Tunisia, origin country, you see how the tension, especially when many sociologists they are so fascinated by the French militant secularism, laicite, which is really doesn't fit at all, even to the universalistic model of secularism. So to defend this, the minimal secularism, it means a differentiation between political sphere, religious sphere, economic sphere, and social sphere, while become the French laicite or secularism, religion against the other religion. So if a sociologist espouse this ontological separation, tough separation between religion and secular, yes, there is an issue. There is a real issue, and but I guarantee to you, in the Arab world, is you have the I mean, you have pluralistic. I mean, I cannot tell you the percentage of each group, and this is maybe will determine after my second book.
So with that, we thank you very much, Prof. My good friend and colleague Sari Hanafi, for entertaining this session and these questions and responding to these concerns. And now the mic back to Dr. Ahmed. So that's my job has been done. So Dr. Ahmed,
thank you, Mohamed El-Tahir El-Mesawi. Yeah, dear friend. Yeah.
Dr. Ahmed.